Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and call this session of the City of Ocean Shores Hearing Examiner to order. For the record, today is December 6, 2023 at 10 a.m. We have 4 items on the agenda today, starting with number RUE 23013, a request for approval of a reasonable use exception, or RUE, to allow for the development of a single-family residence that would impact approximately 5,514 square feet of buffer area associated with an off-site Category 1 interdunal wetland on an approximately 0.44 acre property located at 399 Ocean Shores Boulevard Northwest. My name is Peregrine Sorter. I am a hearing examiner with Laminar Law, whom the city has selected to hold certain land use hearings like this one. It will be my role today to collect evidence in the form of exhibits and testimony to determine whether this proposal complies with the city comprehensive plan, zoning ordinances, critical areas ordinances, and the specific criteria for approval of a reasonable use exception. To that end, I received and reviewed several exhibits in advance of this hearing. These include the staff report prepared by city staff, the application and project plans, a wetland report prepared by Key Environmental Solutions, and various notice materials. And I will go ahead and admit these exhibits into the record. Should anyone have any additional exhibits that they would like admitted into the record, please let me know when it is your opportunity to testify, and I will go ahead and address admitting additional exhibits at that time. Speaking of testimony, all testimony today will be under oath or affirmation, because were my decision to be appealed, the recording of today's hearing, along with the admitted exhibits and my written decision, would serve as the foundation for any such appeal. I may ask questions of those who are testifying. I am not trying to trip anyone up. I am just trying to ensure that I have a clear understanding of the proposal so that after the record closes, I am able to produce a decision that is hopefully clear and legally defensible. The order that we typically follow, and I believe we will be following today, is first we will hear from city staff, who will provide an overview of the proposal along with any recommendations that the city may have. Following that, we will hear from the applicant and see if there is any additional information they feel that myself or members of the public should be aware of in advance of my decision being issued. After that, members of the public will have an opportunity to testify. And finally, following any public testimony, we will turn back to the applicant and the city as necessary for any response. And I think with that, we can get started. Mr. Reed, let's get you sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony that you give here today?
I do.
Thank you. And can you please spell your name for the audio recording and explain your role at the city?
Sure. My name is Marshall Reed, Marshall, Reed, READ, and I serve as the lead planner and shoreline administrator for the city of Ocean Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And did my summary of the exhibits track with what you were hoping I'd review in advance of the hearing?
They did.
Great. And I do have some questions for you, but we do have the applicant's expert, Ms. McMurray, available. So if it's okay with the city, I'd like to get her sworn in so she can provide any clarifications.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Ms. McMurray, do we have you? You're muted right now.
Yes, you do.
Hello. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony that you give here today?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and direct my questions to the city, but if you feel the need to chime in with any additional information, please do so. Okay, Mr. Reed, and just for the record, the city determined that this proposal is exempt from SEPA review as minor new construction. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it appears from the record that there is a Category 1 interdunal wetland that is located entirely off the site, but it has a 225-foot protective buffer that extends onto the rear, approximately western half of the property. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. And then can you or Ms. McMurray briefly speak to the existing conditions of this buffer area on the property? For instance, I see that the Pacific Boulevard Beach Access Way runs along the northern border of the property. Does this have an existing impact on the buffer's functionality?
Key, would you like to address that, or would you like me to speak about that?
I can, Marshall. So,
Okay.
yes, Pacific Avenue is already impacting the buffer already. It's heavily used beach access road. In addition, the buffer on the parcel is already heavily impacted by non-native vegetation of Scotch broom and Himalayan blackberry, which will, as part of the mitigation plan, will be removed. But with the beach, Pacific Avenue beach approach, it is heavily impacted as it is heavily used access.
Great, thank you. And then can you or Marcel speak to the proposed location of the structure on the property and just discuss how that was designed, to avoid and minimize impacts to the buffer?
So we minimized as much as we possibly could, and keeping in also in association with the existing building structures to the south, directly to the south, in alignment. The applicant could have moved closer to the west property line, but we chose to stay in alignment with the houses to the south. And
yeah, I know.
Trying to minimize our footprint into the buffer.
Thank you, Ms. McMurray. I noticed that, and that is, I assume, to maintain some view corridor of the beach area.
That is correct, and also just basically staying in alignment with the existing houses.
So there'd be some aesthetics to that too, some aesthetic
Correct.
qualities to keeping that in mind. Thank you.
That is correct.
And let's see. Oh, and can you speak to the mitigation proposed for this? Is this, you said there's going to be some invasive species removal, but is there would be payment into the city's wetland mitigation bank?
Yes, there will be purchase of credits from the Wetland Weather Wax Mitigation Bank, and also besides the non-native plant removal, there will be we will be maintaining all of the existing native vegetation along the sides and out front to the west in the buffer area.
And
so
the
all
applicant,
all the native plants that are there will be maintained, and then all of the non-native will be removed along the side yards on the north and south side yards and out in front of the west.
and then I know there's not a final mitigation plan in place, but is some of that restoration going to be credited towards the impacts, or is it going to be kind of one-to-one for the mitigation bank for the full impacts?
It's one-to-one as far as square footage of impacts into the wetland mitigation bank.
Great, thank you. Let me just make sure I don't have any additional questions here. I think that's all the questions I have for the city and Ms. McMurray at this time. Are there any other members of city staff that are testifying on this matter?
No, they're not.
And then I see we do have the applicant here, so let's go ahead and get them sworn in. Ms. Reese?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Hello, can you please raise your right hand? I'll trust that you're doing so. I don't see you on video.
I am doing it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I am.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony that you give here today?
Yes, I do.
Great. And then
My
is
husband
it
is
just,
also, excuse me, I'm sorry. My husband is also raising his right hand. He's been working with us more often than I have, so he may chime in as well.
Okay, let me just ask Mr. Reese then, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony that you give here today?
Yes, I do.
Thank you both. So this would be, I only have one quick question for you, but this is also your opportunity to present any additional information about the proposal that you would like.
Okay. We purchased this land a little over 2 years ago. We are looking to retire and move there permanently. This will be a permanent residence for us. And love the area.
Great, thank you, Mr. Reese. And have you had an opportunity to review
mute.
the conditions that
You're on
were?
mute now.
Did you have an opportunity to review the conditions that were recommended by city staff?
Yes, sir. We've gone over them and had a lot of conversations with both Marshall and Key in putting this proposal together. So I'm fully aware of our responsibility as the caretakers of the property as far as what's required to maintain the wetland area.
Great, thank you. So you'd have no issue complying with those conditions?
None at all.
Great. Well, thank you. Do you have any other witnesses that you would like to present?
No, sir.
Great. So we'll see if there's any members of the public. Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify?
Yeah, we don't have anybody in the room with us today other than my planner, Chris.
Okay, great. Well, any last thoughts on behalf of the city, Mr. Reed?
No, not at this time. You've presented well.
Great. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this matter. I want to thank everyone for participating today. If you're not here for the next matter, you're free to stay or leave as you please. I intend to issue a decision on this application within 10 working days of the record closing today.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Thank you,
Great.
Your Honor, and thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for your time.
Great, thank you. We're back on the record. Next on the agenda, we have numbers RUE 23014, 015, and 016, all of which involve requests for approval of a reasonable use exception to allow for the development of single-family residences on 3 contiguous, approximately 0.19 acre parcels located respectively at 552, 556, and 560 Chenhua, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Avenue Northeast. RUEs are required for the proposals because they would result in impacts to the buffer areas associated with a Category 2 wetland that is partially located on each of the properties. Specifically, the proposed developments at 552 and 556 Chenhua Avenue would each impact 3,905 square feet of buffer areas, and the development at 560 Avenue would impact 4,047 square feet of buffer area. I received and reviewed several exhibits in advance of this hearing. These include the staff report prepared by city staff, the application and project plans, a wetland report prepared for all 3 projects by Convergent Ecosystems, and various notice materials. And I will go ahead and admit these exhibits into the record. Should anyone else have any additional exhibits that they would like admitted into the record, please let me know when it is your opportunity to testify, and I will go ahead and address admitting additional exhibits at that time. With that, Mr. Reed, you are still sworn in and you can begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, sure. We received applications from the Randall family for these RUE hearings on October 12th of 2023. We worked through mitigation strategies with their consultant, Ms. Baker, and the existing conditions of this, these properties are located in an R6C single-family zone. There's no shorelines associated with them. As minor new construction, they were exempt from the SEPA process, and so they did not go through and file a SEPA checklist. The surrounding conditions on these parcels, as far as existing land use, to the north, we have a land use designation of mobile home manufactured housing. To the south, parks and recreation, and to the east and west, both mobile home manufactured housing. The background, the subject property addressed at 552 Chanus Avenue is located in the northeast corner of Ocean Shores. The closest intersecting road is about 810 feet south to Albatross Street. The property is zoned R6C and located in the modified mobile home zoning district. Impacting the lot for a single family dwelling is a permitted use in this district, which is proposed. Notice was given, as is customary with all of our RUE hearings, to those located within 300 feet of the proposed project, following the guidelines of Ocean Shores Municipal Code 1752-090. The hearing information was published online as well. And we also noticed these hearings in the Daily World newspaper for publication. We've determined that a RUE is to allow for use of this parcel that would be allowed, which in all aspects otherwise would be in accordance with city code. And this is to be applied or is to be associated with buffers, and the applicant has demonstrated that the project has been approved under all federal, state, and regulatory programs applicable to the project. Any impacts to the wetland buffers must be compensated for through mitigation measures. Where on-site mitigation measures are infeasible, compensatory mitigation might be authorized under Ocean Shores Municipal Code 1902-150B. Following those standards, the code analysis, the project may be authorized under R6C. All permitted uses in the R1 zone, single family residence, that is the proposal for this project. The development will be substantially consistent with the purpose of the district and will not adversely affect other uses or properties in the immediate area. One of the things that I would like to point out regarding the proposed impact to these properties, it's a normal process using GIS mapping to create a polygon and then derive the impacted area from that polygon using the GIS selection tool. In this case, we have specific dimensions given, and the polygon selection from the GIS software did not exactly match the dimensions of the parcel. So you will see a slight difference in my calculated area versus what's shown in the orange box impact area of the maps. And that's due to this minor modification based on the use of GIS software as just calculating based on a square.
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Reed, in that regard?
Sure.
So the proposed impacts as you present in your staff reports, those would be accurate?
Those would be accurate, yes. In this first example, the impact area, when you select the orange polygon, it says that there's 3,875 square feet within that polygon. But if you take the dimensions of the house, the 21-foot setback, and the 3-foot defensible space between the house and the edge of that polygon, and call that the width of the rectangle, and the width of these lots is 70 feet, and you multiply the 54 feet by 70 feet, that comes up to 3,780 square feet as opposed to the 3,875 square feet. And that's merely a function of the software not being literal in its application of math.
Just looking. I'm just looking at those documents here just to make sure I'm understanding. 1,800.
Yeah, the document that I worked off of was figure 6A of the plan. It's a map that shows the protective fencing, the impact area, the proposed house and driveway, those kind of things. and there are some specific dimensions given from the front property line to the house, the width of the house, and there's a small defensible space identified as 3 feet between the house and the protective fencing. And so that would be adding those 3 dimensions up, gives you a width of the rectangle, and then the length of that rectangle, the platted width as published in the Ocean Shores plat is 70 feet. So if we go full width by those dimensions added up, that should be 70 times 54, and I believe the math on that comes out to 3,780.
Can we go ahead and get Ms. Baker sworn in? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today?
I do.
And can you please state and spell your name for the record and explain your role with this project?
Of course. My name is Rosemary Baker, Rosemary Baker. I'm the wetlands consultant for the applicant. My company is Convergent Ecosystems. I just wanted to make sure we were all looking at the same or referring to the same set of figures. In my figure 6A of what I submitted to the applicant, 6A actually shows defensible space between the house and the protective fencing as 5 feet. Marshall had said 3 feet, so I just want to make sure we are looking at the same version of this figure, because I know that I did send other versions, draft versions, as I was in communication with the city.
Yeah, I noticed that too. There's 2 6As in this record, and that I just saw that one that you were referring to, and then I see another one that has, yes, a 3 foot, and then it says 3,875 square feet of impacts. So
Right.
I just want clarification which one is the correct one, and what we're working off of as well.
Certainly, the final version of the report with the site plan for this property for 560 Chanus, we increased that setback at the back based on city comment from 3 to 5 feet to be in compliance. And so our impact area calculation was actually 3,905 square feet. So we do have some different numbers going on here.
Yeah, and I am perfectly willing to reflect that as a part of the final mitigation agreement when we get into the mitigation sales agreement, because I know you and I did talk about that. I just didn't see that in my staff report when I pulled that out. I must have missed the 5 feet versus the 3 feet. But again, that's something that will be worked out in the mitigation sales agreement. Happy to do that.
Perfect.
Great, and I know you're still in the middle of your presentation, but for some clarity also, would the figure 6B referring to 556, and is it Chanu? How do you pronounce this street so I'm not butchering it?
Ocean Shores pronounce it as Chanus.
Chanus, okay, so at 556 Chanus Avenue, that is also 3,905 square feet of proposed impacts. And then at 560, in this figure 6C, proposed 4,047 square feet of impacts. Okay, I just want to make sure those numbers are correct so I can reflect those in my decision. Thank you, Mr. Reed. You may proceed.
Okay. There was not very much left here.
Okay.
I did include in this, as you asked in previous hearings, for a summary of the criteria required for a wetland or a buffer impact approval. Would you like me to go through that entire relevant code one time for all three of these so that it's read into the record, or is the written
Um,
document?
Your written document is sufficient, and as it appears we don't have any other members of the public, any members of the public interested in this proposal can refer to your staff report that's in the record. So I don't think that's necessary. I have a quick procedural matter. I just realized, Mr. Reed, did I steal your thunder in the first hearing and not let you give a presentation? Did I just kind of turn to the questions?
You basically did do a great presentation. And that's okay. Where the information comes from, as long as it's accurate, is pretty irrelevant in my mind.
Do you want to just affirm that your testimony would have reflected what's in your staff report?
Yeah, had your
Okay.
testimony not reflected what was in my staff report, I would make a correction during my opportunity to comment, sure.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. I just kind of jumped the gun.
No,
So,
that's-
let's go ahead and get this back on track. Okay, Mr. Reed, and you can chime in if you want, Ms. Baker. So just to be clear, there's a Category 2 wetland that extends partially onto the rear of all three of these properties. And I believe that has a 150-foot standard buffer that encumbers the entirety of all the parcels. Is that correct?
That
I'm
is,
showing I'm showing a 225-foot buffer. Is that what you're reflecting, Rosemary?
no, that might be again that version control issue. So essentially, when these per the ecology guidance, when these wetlands exist without any development, that 225 is the standard buffer for a Category 2 wetland in the state of Washington in terms of ecology guidance. But when you're applying development or intensity of land use, then that buffer is reduced. So therefore, the standard buffer for high intensity land use associated with a Category 2 is 150 feet.
Okay, and did we determine that that fully encumbered all three of these lots, regardless whether it was 150 or 225, that all three lots were fully encumbered?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
So then development on any of these properties would not be feasible absent a RUE allowing for buffer impacts, correct?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
that is correct.
Thank you. And then can you just speak briefly to the existing conditions of the buffer areas? It appears that on two of the properties, the buffer areas are intact, but at 552, there's been some disturbance through previous clearing and grading. Is that correct?
Actually, at 560, 560, the most northern of the three properties is where the previous owner did clear and grade. So that buffer has been fully impacted.
But it's my understanding that this proposal, it would not include any restoration.
That is correct. It will include set aside and for all three properties. For the previously impacted 560 Chanus property, there is existing native vegetation along the fringes that were not fully, no pavement went in, just like a layer of gravel went in. So my assumption is it's very likely that the native vegetation there will grow back if left just as a set aside.
Just undisturbed here on out. Okay, great. And then and protective fencing is going to be installed to preserve and protect those remaining buffer areas.
That is correct.
And then your report thoroughly addresses the avoidance and minimization efforts of these projects, but perhaps you can just speak to that really briefly in case any members of the public want to watch this recording.
Certainly. So originally, the applicant, prior to knowledge of, wetlands and buffers, and prior to this wetland study, had slated to develop all 3 properties fully, to place these 3 houses more central to the properties. And so in working with the applicant and the city, we significantly reduced those impacts by shifting the house placements closer to Chanus, to the west sides of the property, away from the wetland, and allowing for as much existing buffer to remain as possible, pushing also the houses up to the edges of the front yard setbacks in all 3 cases.
Great, thank you. I don't have any additional questions for you or Mr. Reed. Are there, it doesn't appear that there's any other members of public or witnesses. Can you just confirm that, Mr. Reed?
Yes, no other members of public are present.
Great, and do you have any last thoughts on behalf of the city before I adjourn this matter?
No, the standard recommendation would be that should you approve the development, the planning department recommends conditions as listed. And that would be that any construction would meet all current planning, zoning, building, and construction and fire codes, and that they would complete and finalize a wetland buffer mitigation plan that will compensate for any of these impacts that are authorized. And the plan will include the delineation fencing and signage as required for the unmitigated critical areas. So other than that, no, we've got this complete.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, I am going to go ahead and adjourn these matters. I want to thank everyone for participating today, and I intend to issue my decision on all these applications within 10 business days of the record closing today. Thank you. And Mr. Reed, do you have a quick minute after we stop the recording? I just have a quick procedural issue I'd like to discuss. 2 minutes.